Greetings.
All right, that's it.
Blow it again, John.
Huh?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
John J. Jeckovich. It's December 31st, 2024, and we're reading his book, Their Mother's Sons. We're on chapter 22, and it's titled Wedding and the Poconos. We're on page 715. How many pages in your book?
849.
That's a long book. That must have took you a year to write.
So 3 months. 3 months.
Wow, that's great. So I'm going to open up the laptop, but I need the passcode. What's your dog name?
42965.
All right, let me open it up here. Okay, it's open. I'm ready to read. How's your day going, Mr.
Good,
Jeckovich?
it was good, it was good, yeah.
I heard you went to a New Year's Eve party, listened to a live band.
This guy's gonna go out of here.
Huh? Nice. And then I also heard that you had your great-granddaughter Amber with you most of the day.
Oh yeah, Amber,
What a
yeah.
great way to spend New Year's Eve. Your granddaughters are a true joy. A true joy. She spends a lot of time with you. You guys do art and paintings and things like that. Is there anything else you want to say about your day?
My day?
Yeah, how was your day?
It was a good day for New Year's. For New Year's.
Good day. I like to hear that. I like to hear that. Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100 years old. He was born in 1925. Right around the corner is 2025.
Yeah.
Boy, you've been around a long time. You've been around a long time. You've seen a lot of things during the 100 years, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Mr. Jeckovich grew up during the Depression.
They didn't even know it was a question, no.
You didn't think you were poor.
We ate well.
Family was together.
Family stuck together, yeah.
You guys went to church. You had no idea that you were poor.
Yeah.
I gave it to you. You're ready, took your medicine.
So that's interesting.
Huh?
It's interesting. In fact, today, you know, the United States is a beautiful place. In fact, today, some of the poorest people today, they have shelter, they have heat, they have food, they have even a cell phone. Some of the poorest people today living a better life, believe it or not, than some kings and queens over 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. Credit card,
Yeah, so even the poorest people today have a better life than the kings and queens of 1,000 years ago. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. So Mr. Jeckovich's book takes you from the time he's about 11, 12, 13 years old, and you're delivering the newspaper, right?
Genius Lashinsky.
Mr. Jeckovich was delivering the Polish newspaper. And how many customers did you
150.
150.
And they wouldn't pay.
Why wouldn't they
They were
pay?
the dumbass.
You always seem to make me laugh. Mr. Jeckovich is an equal opportunity hater. He hates all nationalities. So they would pay you. So what did you say?
Huh?
What did they say to you?
He said, I paid you last week. Don't slash me around. I want the paper. Give me the paper.
And they were all like in a broken Polish accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smelled like goofy stuff they were cooking.
Oh boy, Archie Barker 2025, holy shit. And then, did you eventually get paid?
Huh?
Did you eventually get paid for delivering the newspaper?
Yeah.
How the hell would you deliver all those papers during the middle of the winter?
I had that Black Knight bicycle with a little horn on the side.
That
and a basket on the front.
bicycle was a highly collectible bike today. Back then, what were they, $30, $40?
Yeah.
And they have a big, on the center, they have a big, like, tank that has buttons you press and lights. It's called Black Knight, made by Schwinn. And the interesting thing about it, the Black Knight bikes were made in the United States.
Yeah. U.S., yeah.
Yeah, and they're great bikes. And For collectors today, 80 years later, they're chasing them down anywhere for them.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
And they had balloon tires.
Yeah, prior to that, they had hard tires.
A nice spring socket for
Springs
chain and
on the
everything.
front.
Yeah.
But prior to that, the tires were solid rubber.
Yeah.
And then when the Black Knight came out, they had a tube inside of them.
Yeah.
So how the hell would you drive that in the snow?
No, that was good. You just follow the car tracks or something.
So the book takes him, Mr. Jeckovich is 11 when he started taking care of his mother, because his father was literally a slave and he worked himself to death trying to support the family. He was an immigrant from Russia, came from a tough situation, and when he came to the United States, did the proper channels through Ellis Island. And back then, 100 years ago or so, most people were coming to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Niagara Falls was busy.
That was the honeymoon city of the world.
So Mr. Jeckovich's father died of a massive heart attack at 43 doing some cement work. He was running 3 different jobs. But an interesting thing about that generation, they would never take a handout. They would never take a dime from the government. They would not take a dime from anybody. They had to earn it or they didn't take it. They had to earn it or they didn't take it. So when Mr. Jeckovich's father died at 43, his mother was alone, so he had to take care of her to the end of her life, some 80-some years later.
Till I got drafted.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Mr. Jeckovich, the war was blazing on, and Mr. Jeckovich wasn't old enough yet, but right around the corner he was.
33, yeah. 19, yeah.
The code in the Army is 33. That designates a 19-year-old. But anyways, Mr. Jeckovich could have enlisted, and he would have got a better position in the Army or wherever he went to. He would have been able to pick a lot more things, better positions. But he waited, he got drafted. Why'd you wait till you get drafted?
Well, I want to take care of my mother.
There we go. He could have enlisted, he got a better position, but he waited to get drafted. When you get drafted during a world war, your position is 99% of the time on the front line in combat, correct?
Yeah.
That's where you were, right?
Yeah, that's where I wound up, Granite Old Belgium.
So during this time, Mr. Jeckovich was taking care of his mother. He was going to 2 high schools. One was called Niagara Falls High School, and then about 4 miles from there was Trot Vocational High School. Why were you going to 2 different high schools?
Well, I went to high school for the 16 points. I had to go to college, and Trot I went there for the electrical stuff.
Oh, okay. So you went to 2 high schools, but you graduated from Niagara Falls High School.
Yeah.
So you were able to get the
I had 16
credits to go
points,
to college.
yeah.
That's interesting. So Mr. Jeckovich waited till he was drafted so he could spend more time with his mother, but then he got the worst position, front line, many, many wars, including the Battle of the Bulge, which was the bloodiest of the bloody. The bloodiest of the bloody. Mr. Jeckovich during this time was shot up, beat up, stabbed, bombed,
French foot.
trench foot. He still has shrapnel.
I got this French foot right now.
And frostbite.
Frostbite, yeah.
A lot of people don't understand frostbite is so deadly. Once you get frostbite, you can lose your nose, your ears, your foot, your hand. But any of the listeners today that might be going skiing, and they're out on the slopes, and they think they're in the beginning stages of frostbite. Let me give you a little hint. If you're in the beginning of stage of frostbite, the last thing you want to do is go inside a heated area. That's the last thing. You'll never cure it. It'll be worse. What you want to do, if you're in initial stages of frostbite, is grab some snow and rub it on that area. With the snow, will get the blood circulating again. And that's probably the only way that you'd save that limb or your nose or your ear. But Mr. Jeckovich still suffers from it today. But it could have been a lot worse because most of his fellow combat soldiers, they lost limbs and were completely disabled by it. And Mr. Jeckovich still has shrapnel. Still has shrapnel in his leg now. So if he was going to go through the airport checkpoint, the buzzers would go off, right?
Yeah, I got a little letter.
So when when you were shot up, what hospitals did you go to?
I went to the hospital in France.
Paris?
Paris, yeah.
And who'd you meet in Paris?
I met Renee there, yeah.
She was a fine girl. Tell us
Yeah.
about Renee.
Renee was going to be a nun, but her two brothers got killed by the Germans, and then her mother and father got killed by the Germans, so she got teed off and got into the resistance.
Yeah, so Renee was a beautiful young lady, and she was in a convent at the time for about a year, and she got notice that her mother and father, which their parents were probably only in their late 30s, early 40s, they were, of course, tortured and killed by the Nazis because the Nazis were occupying Paris for 4 years. And then shortly thereafter, Renee was notified that her two young brothers, I guess they were like 15, 16, 17.
They were young, yeah, they were young.
They were also tortured and killed by the Nazis. The Nazis in Paris were abusing and killing all the residents of Paris. It's a disgusting thing, but that's their MO. The Nazis are really horrible, mean-spirited people.
They were doing examinations on them. They were taking their arm off and seeing what happened with their arm off and all
Yeah,
that.
these are really perverted and sick in the guise of medicine, which was nothing but torture. They would, these Nazis, so-called medical profession, which is a joke. They're just evil people, and many of them went to the Nuremberg trials and were death by hanging. They had an obsession with twins. They gathered up over 4,000 sets of twins during the World War. Only 200 sets survived, but they did some unbelievable,
Yeah, they were crazy.
painful experiments on them. One of the main experiments they would do, they'd sew the two together and separate it out.
Yeah.
It was just and there's no painkillers, there's nothing like that. Just horrible, horrible situations. Or they'd freeze them and see if they could revive them. It was just like things that we spent enough. You don't even need to know, but horrible, horrible things. So Renee then left the convent, and fortunately Renee was a talented artist of portraits. And when you went to meet her for the first time, in her apartment in Paris, right down the road from the Eiffel Tower, what did you see in her apartment?
See a lot of portraits of German high tops, high echelon people.
So a lot of Nazi officers, there was portraits there. So apparently Renee was a very smart person. I think she questioned her religion, but who wouldn't? I mean, even Mother Teresa questioned her religion. Even the Pope today questions her religion. So she went a different avenue because her parents were both slaughtered, and then her two brothers were slaughtered by the Nazis. So she would be diplomatically allowing these Nazi officers to come in and get the portrait painted.
Yeah, and then they started gabbing, they got how great they were doing, and she picked this stuff up and gave the Allies the information.
Yeah, because she painted many a Nazi SS portraits because these guys have huge egos, massive egos. And so as she's painting their portrait, she's picking up what they're talking about and relaying it to the French resistance. Giving whatever information she could gather. A very risky job, but she was past the point of risk. And giving it to the French resistance, which she became a member then. So what finally happened to Renee?
Well, they caught up on her and they took her out in the woods and shot her.
So that was the end of a beautiful young lady.
Yeah.
So finally, Mr. Jeckovich and thousands of other teenagers in the U.S. Army, they ran the Nazis out of Paris, ran right out of Paris. And you could not believe how thankful the residents of Paris were. In fact, less than 2 months ago, we got a beautiful 15 or 20 minute video from a fellow in Paris that watches Mr. Jeckovich's nightly videos. This is a man that his great-great-grandparents were during World War II. This is a young fellow, like in his 20s or 30s, and he stood in front of the Eiffel Tower And he had a great speech to Mr. Jeckovich, thanking Mr. Jeckovich. If it wasn't people like Mr. Jeckovich and the military combat, that he wouldn't be standing in front of that Eiffel Tower today. He was extremely thankful. And so this book is a message to maybe people in the States that don't know about World War II, don't know anything about it, that Mr. Jeckovich could leave to others to listen to. There's over 400 podcasts. You can start from the beginning or pick out the best ones, and you could go from there. And of course, every day we get several texts about where could he buy the book.
Yeah.
Where could you buy the book?
You can't still buy it. You can't buy it.
The book,
It's not for sale.
14 minutes.
the book wasn't made to be for sale.
No.
It's giving out a message. It'll never be for sale. And it's just goodwill to people to understand what it was like during the Depression and what it's like during World War II, and then later into retirement. And as you listen to all these 400 podcasts, you could see, even though the war was raging on, and even though Mr. Jeckovich was raised during the Depression, it was a much simpler life than today. And eventually, when the war ended, the soldiers would get married, they'd get a nice job, and the wife would stay home and raise the family, right?
That's normal, yeah.
And now, the wife has to work 3 jobs, the husband's got to work 4 jobs just to pay a mortgage.
Yeah.
So these cell phones and these laptops and
Big cars.
yeah, it didn't make your life more convenient.
No, that wasn't it.
It didn't make your life more convenient. It made your life more hectic and confusing. And that's a fact. Hectic and confusing. So that's what the general stroke of the book is. And but there is a copy of Mr. Jeckovich's book in the World War II Museum at in New Orleans. Original copies there. And we've been working for 6 or 7 months of setting up Mr. Jeckovich in a booth for AI with his demeanors, his exact language, and his exact looks in a booth. So 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, you could ask Mr. Jeckovich a question about World War II, and they'll respond in AI. But right now, this is better. You have the real deal here. Keep in mind, there's only less than 6,000 combat soldiers left from World War II, and we're losing them at a rate of 150 a day. So do the math. So if you want to ask Mr. Jeckovich a question, he'll answer all of them. He'll answer all your questions. Text Mr. Jeckovich at 407-366-0000. 407-366-0000. So there's nothing to sell here. It's just sharing knowledge with the youngsters. And as we mentioned earlier, Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100 years old. For example, if you're 40 years old right now and listening to this, you have only a 10% chance of ever making it to 100.
Yeah.
If you're 40 now, you have a 10% chance of making it to 100. Simple things, like when Mr. Jeckovich proposed to his wife, Delphine Stulak, in Buffalo, New York. They went to the Roman Catholic Basilica in Lackawanna, New York, and they went in the basilica. They said a prayer. Mr. Jeckovich proposed to her, and then they knelt on the altar in the basilica, praying for a long and happy marriage. How did that prayer get answered?
Well, we had married for 69 years.
Enough said. 69 years. Mrs. Jeckovich recently passed away on August 14th, 2020. August 14th, 2020. And she was approximately 90 years old.
Now, what was this?
Delphine.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so 69 years, like today in Florida, we have over 90,000 divorces every year.
Nah.
Just in Florida alone. And here's an example They said a prayer in the basilica. Prayers were answered. 69 years. 69 years. So the book tells you things on how simple life was, gives you examples of how life was, and maybe a few lessons along the way you can learn. But getting back to all these texts, and we're glad to answer them, but the book is never for sale. It's not about money. Mr. Jeckovich is not hawking money from nobody. He's set up pretty damn well. It's going to take him to the end of his time. And so it's not about selling something. We have nothing to sell. We only have to give.
Yeah.
We only have to give. We only have to give. Minutes, please.
9.
So that's a nice book of goodwill. And Mr. Jeckovich enjoyed working it, writing it. He's writing another one now. We'll tell you about that when the time comes. But just simply, go to the Bulge Busters on YouTube. He's got over 400 of them out there. Put in John Jeckovich, Jeckovov as in Victor, ICH.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. But Mr. Jeckovich, when you were born, your name was different. What was your name?
My name was Jurkovic, Y-E-R.
And why did you change it?
I didn't change it. My brother changed it.
And why did your brother change it?
Well, he was going to Cornell and he was going to get listening with him and that, so he changed the Y to J and
So
the R
that
to
was a
C.
pretty common Russian name, but when they came to the United States, they were picking it up and making sarcasm.
Yeah.
And look, here's an example how simple things were back then compared to now. His brother didn't like to be called Jerk or Jerkovich anymore. He simply changed it by himself, Jeckovich, and everyone started saying Jeckovich.
That's now what Jeckovich says.
There wasn't no legal procedures like now. There wasn't 14 different lawyers and tens of thousands of dollars of fees.
Yeah, I don't think they even had Social Security back then.
No, they didn't. And so, long story short, they just changed it itself. And apparently, it stood the test of time. Because 80 years later, he's a Jeckovich, and there's probably, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 Jeckoviches.
How many in Russia?
Yeah, probably thousands.
Yeah, they're spelled differently, yeah.
Yeah. So in Russia, it was an acceptable name, but in the United States, you would be considered a jerk or some derogatory term. So his brother simply said, one day, it's a Jeckovich. One day, it's Jeckovich. That's it. And believe me, it stuck.
Yeah.
Shouldn't everything be that simple?
Yeah.
Shouldn't everything be that simple? It's just amazing.
I asked him, I said, how come they changed the name? He says, well, they'll give me a hard time.
And I can understand that.
Yeah.
Because, many people are cruel. Many people are damn ass cruel. But I firmly believe there's more good people than bad people. I firmly believe there's more good people than bad people. The Bible will tell you right then and there that many people are born without souls, and I believe that's the bad people. They're born with no soul. And most of these bad people are sociopaths with no empathy. And in fact, unfortunately, we have too many in this family of Mr. Jeckoviches, but we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it at a later time. But Mr. Jeckovich went through over 100 years, 99 Christmases,
Yeah.
99 New Year's Eve. What's your most memorable New Year's Eve?
Oh, when I was probably 15 years old.
How was that? Tell us.
Well, my father was alive, and my mother was alive, and we had a nice New Year's Eve.
What kind of things would a Polish family celebrate with on New Year's Eve?
Oh, they had that, they had a couple of Polish things that were traditional. They had, what the heck was it? Something my mother would make, but bake up.
Like pigs in a blanket?
Well, no,
Or
not that. Well, she
quiche?
did that, but she did.
Kishka, Polish sausage?
No, she used to make the stuffed cabbage.
Okay. And that was traditional.
Yeah.
That was traditional. On New Year's Eve, did your family ever drink?
Well, my father had, we went to the market, we got some of the 8 wagons full of grapes, and he made wine out of it.
Oh, so in the basement, your father made some
Had,
wine?
had a barrel out there, yeah. And then for Christmas, he said, Dad, go down and get a glass of pitcher of wine.
I see. And so where did you get the grapes from?
Down and bought them at the market.
I see. Because that area of Niagara Falls, New York, to this day, they have great vineyards in Lewiston and Youngstown. In fact, they have a famous vineyard right down the road from Mr. Jeckovich's house where he was raised. It's called the Chateau Gay Winery.
Yeah.
And that's a great vineyard. So they had the soil. They had the soil. They had the weather to make great grapes. So your father would use some type of barrel, and he'd make the grapes. And how long did he have to let it ferment for?
Well, he hung the bag. It was a cotton bag. Put a string up on the rafter, a nail on the rafter, and hung that thing up there.
Wow.
And let it drip.
Wow. Did your mother drink?
My mother had a sip of wine for the New Year's Eve or something. No, we didn't drink at home. No. We didn't drink
So
wine.
you weren't a drinking family?
No.
Only on special occasions?
Well, we didn't drink it. We didn't drink wine during the Christmas. Not normal times. We didn't drink it. No.
And what kind of fireworks did they have during a New Year's Eve back 80, 90 years ago?
Oh, they had those 4th of July fireworks. They were selling tremendously at that time of the period. I remember going down and getting the whole, maybe $200 worth of fireworks.
Did many people shoot off their rifles in the air?
Not rifles, just fireworks.
I see. Speaking of rifles, before you were drafted in World War II, did you have a gun?
I didn't have a gun. My father didn't hunt. My father didn't have a gun. We didn't have a pistol. I had nothing at home.
So before you entered World War II, you never fired a weapon?
No.
During World War II, Mr. Jeckovich was operating heavy machine guns with a pretty good squad behind him. And this heavy-duty machine gun, the tripod weighed 150 pounds, so you need a person carrying it. You need 4 ammo barrels because they go through these 30 calibers, like 1,000 in a couple of minutes. And then he had to have someone carrying the water to cool the heavy-duty machine gun. The barrel would get red hot. So during the war, Mr. Jeckovich was probably, through this heavy-duty machine gun with the high numbers, he probably shot over 1 million rounds.
Yeah, but I had to move it every 10 seconds.
Tell us why you had to move it.
Well, because they zero in on you.
You blow off a couple thousand rounds and then you run.
Yeah, the gun would start smoking in the front, and they picked it up.
Well, during the Battle of Bulge, there was the worst, coldest winter of anyone could recollect. How did you keep the water from freezing?
Antifreeze.
Where did you get the water from in the middle of a forest?
Any brook or lake we found, we put the water in.
You bust the ice and get a little water?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so before the war, you never operated or knew about a rifle? There was no pistols in your house?
No, we never had a firearm in the house.
So you shot off about 1 million rounds, but when you also had a M1 carbine and a pistol, when you had someone you had to shoot with the pistol, where would you hit them?
Pistol?
When you shot someone with the pistol, where would you hit them?
I wouldn't live in a leg or something.
Yeah. So
but I wouldn't shoot with a pistol, I shoot with the carbine.
Shoot him with the carbine, pop him in the leg so he has a chance of going on, the living. Because if you shoot him in the stomach, chest, it's pretty much a fatality. And so Mr. Jeckovich would do that. Hey, how many minutes we got in the studio?
All right.
And tell us about when a young Nazi soldier had to drop on you.
30 seconds.
A young soldier, yeah.
Had a drop on you.
We were in a culvert, and he was going one way, and I was going the other way. I was down. I was on ready, and he was ready. Stopped me, looked at me, smiled, and turned around, went back.
And he knew when he had his back towards you, you were going to put a bullet in him.
No.
I hope that young Nazi soldier had a long and beautiful life.
Me too. 5 seconds.
Wow,
Yeah, a young kid. Yeah, one young kid like me.
just like you.